I was sipping my morning coffee when my phone buzzed. Again. The name flashing across the screen made my chest tighten. Lena. My sister. The same sister who'd once called my husband her best friend. The irony wasn't lost on me. I set the cup down carefully, not because I was scared of spilling, but because I'd learned that composure was my best armor. The city outside my apartment window glittered under the soft California sunlight. I loved mornings like this, calm, clean, untouched by the chaos of memory. My blouse was ivory silk, smooth under my fingertips, a reminder that I'd built this piece myself. No one gifted it to me, especially not the people who'd told me to accept my husband's affair with my own sister. The message previewed on the screen, "Mom wants to have dinner tonight. Everyone will be there." Everyone. That word hit like a cold wave. My mother, who'd begged me to stay married for the family's reputation. My father, silent but complicit. And Daniel, my ex-husband, though my family still pretended otherwise. I stared at the text until the words blurred. I thought I'd buried that version of me. The woman who'd once been humiliated at a dinner table surrounded by polite smiles and poisoned loyalty. But maybe tonight was different. Because this time, I wasn't the one with secrets to hide. I took a slow breath, typed a single word, and hit send. Sure. 2 years ago, I thought I had everything figured out. A loving husband, a close-knit family, a cozy suburban home with a lemon tree in the backyard. My name was still Emily Carter, and my world still made sense. Until the night it didn't. It started small, a misplaced earring in Daniel's car. A scent of perfume I didn't wear. Then, one evening, I walked into our living room to find him sitting too close to my sister, Lena, on the couch. Her laughter, soft, familiar, cut deeper than I could admit. When their eyes met, they didn't look away fast enough. I knew. Every nerve in my body screamed it before a single word was spoken. I remember the way my hands shook as I poured myself a glass of water, pretending not to see. The glass trembled against my lips, the coolness doing nothing to drown the heat of betrayal burning through my chest. When I confronted them that night, the truth came out in pieces, shameful, slippery, unstoppable. Lena cried. Daniel swore it was a mistake. But it wasn't just a mistake. It was a choice they both made while smiling at me across family dinners. I thought my parents would be furious. Instead, they were calm. Too calm. "Emily, don't blow this out of proportion," my mother said, folding her arms like she was discussing a dinner menu. "Family comes first," my father added quietly. "You can forgive him. And Lena is still your sister." That's when something inside me cracked, not like glass shattering, but like a seed splitting open. Painful. Necessary. Later that night, I sat on my grandmother's porch swing, tears running down my face. The old wind chime above me hummed softly in the breeze, her favorite. I remembered her words from years ago, whispered as she handed me her small silver locket. "Never let anyone tell you that silence is strength, sweetheart. Sometimes strength is walking away." I clutched that locket until my palms ached. The next morning, I packed a single suitcase, took one last look at the lemon tree outside, and left the house without a note. That was the last time I let anyone tell me what kind of woman I should be. Starting over felt like standing barefoot on broken glass, painful, awkward, but necessary to move forward. I ended up in a one-bedroom apartment in downtown San Diego, where the walls were thin and hope was thinner. My savings barely covered rent. Every night, I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan, wondering how someone like me, once a wife, a sister, a daughter, had become a ghost in her own story. But ghosts learn how to survive quietly. I got a job as an assistant at a small marketing agency. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I was the woman who brought coffee, filed invoices, and stayed late when everyone else went home. Still, there was a spark in me that refused to die. I'd always had an eye for design, for words that made people feel something. So I started learning, free online courses, late-night YouTube tutorials, the soft glow of my laptop lighting up my tiny kitchen. That's where I met Maya Roberts, my mentor, the creative director who saw something in me no one else ever did. She was the kind of woman who wore confidence like perfume. "You've got taste, Emily," she said one day, glancing at the layout I'd stayed up all night perfecting. "Don't just fetch coffee. Start building something." Under her guidance, I climbed, slowly, painfully, beautifully. There were nights I cried in the shower, feeling like I was scrubbing off my old life, Daniel's lies, Lena's betrayal, my parents' disappointment. But every tear made me stronger. Every challenge sharpened me. My first big win came when a small startup loved my campaign pitch. They called it refreshing and real. That one project turned into 5. Soon, I was running my own freelance business from that same cramped apartment, clients emailing from New York, Chicago, even London. I bought myself a new laptop. Then a new desk. Then a new apartment with sunlight that actually reached the corners. Still, I kept my success quiet. My family thought I was recovering, that I worked part-time somewhere unimportant. I let them believe it. I posted photos of coffee cups and sunsets, never the meetings with CEOs or the awards my campaign started winning. By the time I was 33, I had built my own agency, Carter Creative, and signed a contract that would take my business nationwide. I was no longer Emily, the wife who couldn't keep her husband or the sister who couldn't trust blood. I was Emily Carter, the founder, the strategist, the woman no one saw coming. Sometimes, late at night, I'd open that old silver locket and whisper to my grandmother's memory. I walked away, just like you said. The wind chime on my balcony would sway gently, as if she were nodding back. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost anymore. I felt like a storm. When my mother's message came, "Dinner at 7. Everyone will be there." I almost deleted it, but something inside me said it was time. Not for closure. For clarity. That evening, I drove to my parents' house in a car they didn't know I owned, a sleek black Tesla that purred instead of roared. I wore a fitted navy dress, minimal jewelry, and the same silver locket my grandmother had given me. My heart was calm. Not cold, just calm. The house hadn't changed. White shutters, the same rose bushes, the same air of polite judgment waiting behind the door. As I stepped inside, the familiar scent of roasted chicken and lavender candles hit me. My mother's way of pretending everything was fine. They were all seated when I entered. My father, at the head of the table. My mother, already serving herself wine. Lena, perfect as ever, with a diamond on her ring finger. And Daniel, he looked older. Tired. The kind of tired that comes from guilt you never deal with. "Emily," my mother said, rising with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "You look well." I said simply, sliding into the empty seat across from Lena. There was an awkward hush, filled only by the clink of silverware. Small talk about weather, family friends, nonsense. Until my father finally cleared his throat. "Your mother tells us you've been doing some freelance work." I smiled. "Something like that." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. "We were actually wondering if you might help us with something," he began, his tone falsely casual. "Lena and I are launching a boutique brand, and we could really use someone with marketing experience. Family helping family, right? That word again. Family." I placed my napkin down carefully and met his eyes. "Interesting. I actually own a marketing agency, Carter Creative. Maybe you've heard of it." Silence. My mother blinked. My sister froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "I've seen that name," Lena whispered. "You own that?" "Yes." I leaned back in my chair. "We just signed a national campaign with Hale and Sons last month. It's been busy." My father's jaw dropped slightly. My mother tried to recover with a strained smile. "Well, that's lovely, dear. We're proud of you." But I wasn't done. "Funny thing," I continued, voice steady. "I was approached recently by a boutique brand looking for investors. Lena and Daniel Designs, I believe. I didn't realize it was you too." Daniel's face drained of color. "You're the investor?" "I was considering it," I said, swirling the wine in my glass. Until I saw the names. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. I could almost hear my grandmother's wind chime in the back of my mind, steady and clear. My mother broke first. "Emily, don't make this difficult. They made mistakes, yes, but this is family. We should all stop. My voice was calm, but it sliced through the room. The night you told me to accept my husband's affair with my sister, you stopped being family. What you wanted was obedience, not love. Lena's eyes glistened. I'm sorry, Emily. I really am. I nodded once. I believe you're sorry, but that doesn't mean you're forgiven. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then I stood, smoothing the folds of my dress. Dinner's over. I have somewhere else to be. I paused at the doorway and looked back at them, at the table where I'd once been silenced, humiliated, small. I filed for divorce at this table once, I said quietly. Tonight, I'm filing for peace. And this time, no one dared stop me. The following week, they reached out again, this time through polite emails, not guilt or pressure. My mother wanted to talk things through. My father mentioned a potential family reconciliation, and Lena asked if I'd consider a professional collaboration. Even Daniel tried, though his message was the shortest. I regret everything. Can we meet? I didn't reply right away. I was too busy signing a new partnership contract, one that would triple my company's growth over the next year. But eventually I invited them all to my office. When they arrived, they didn't hide their surprise. My office wasn't what they expected. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the skyline. A minimalist art piece hung behind my glass desk. Fresh white orchids bloomed in a crystal vase. Every inch of the space whispered calm power. My mother's voice trembled slightly. You've done well for yourself. I have, I said, motioning for them to sit. Now, let's get to why you're here. Lena leaned forward, nervously twisting her ring. Emily, I know I can't undo what I did, but I want to make things right. I'm trying to rebuild, and I thought maybe. You want a collaboration, I interrupted softly. You want me to lend credibility to your brand. You want my name. Her eyes lowered. Yes. I nodded, then met each of their gazes. I'll help, but under conditions. Daniel's head snapped up. Conditions? Yes. I folded my hands on the desk. First, Lena, you'll release a public statement about your company's values. Honesty, accountability, transparency. You'll tell your followers why those words matter to you. No vague posts. The truth. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay. Second, I said, turning to Daniel, you'll finalize the divorce papers that have been sitting and signed for months. Today. No excuses. He flinched, but pulled a folder from his bag. They're ready. Good. Finally, I looked at my parents. You two always preached about image and family reputation. From now on, I want you to practice something new, respect. Not control, not silence. Respect. For me, for each other, for the truth. My father looked away. My mother blinked rapidly, as if realizing too late that she'd lost something far greater than her control over me. I'll support each of you in your own ways, I continued. Financially, professionally, but only if you agree to my terms. Because I won't let this family keep repeating its cycles of denial and pretense. There was silence. Heavy, fragile, but different from before. This time, it wasn't power they felt, it was accountability. I stood, smoothing my blazer. You don't have to thank me. Just keep your promises. As they rose to leave, my mother lingered. Emily, she whispered, you've become stronger than any of us imagined. I smiled faintly. No. I just stopped letting anyone imagine my limits for me. The door clicked shut behind them, and for the first time, the office felt like more than a space. It felt like closure. 2 months later, I found myself back on my grandmother's porch, the same one where I'd sat crying years ago, clutching her silver locket and whispering promises I wasn't sure I could keep. But this time, the air felt lighter. The house was quiet, the evening golden and soft. The wind chime above the doorway swayed gently, the same soothing melody I used to fall asleep to as a child. I closed my eyes and listened, letting the sound wash through me. I'd kept my word. Daniel signed the divorce papers the very next day. It was almost anticlimactic, the end of a marriage that had long since turned hollow. Lena posted her statement publicly, raw and honest. She admitted to her betrayal, to the lessons she'd learned, and even credited me for showing her what integrity really looks like. It went viral, not for the scandal, but for the humility. My parents, surprisingly, had begun to change too. My father started volunteering at a local shelter. My mother had begun therapy. She called sometimes, not to guilt me, but just to talk. I answered. Not every time, but enough. It wasn't forgiveness that guided me. It was peace. I'd built something no one believed I could. My business, my independence, my voice. And with every new client, every young woman who told me my story inspired her, I realized that the pain I once thought would destroy me had become the blueprint for my strength. I took out my grandmother's locket, tracing the tiny engraving on the back. Be your own home. I smiled, tears stinging my eyes. Not from sadness, but from the beauty of finally understanding. My phone buzzed beside me. A new email. A global fashion brand wanted to partner with my agency. The subject line read, "We believe in your story." For a moment, I just stared at it, then laughed softly to myself. When I finally looked out at the horizon, the sky was painted in shades of amber and rose, colors of endings and beginnings intertwined. I whispered to the wind, maybe to her, maybe to myself. They told me to accept betrayal for the family's sake, but I chose to honor myself instead. The wind chimes sang again, its silver notes glinting in the sunset. And just like that, I knew the story was no longer about what they did to me. It was about who I had become in spite of it. And that, finally, was enough.